When I was a really little kid, I visited Montana. I don't have very many memories about it, aside from a park that we visited, Bighorn Canyon. Bighorn Canyon has some of its territory extending into the Crow Indian Reservation. There was a Crow family that was visiting the park, and we got to chat it up with them a little bit. I remember the oldest guy in the family. He was 90 years old. And that, at the time, blew me away. I had never met anybody that old in my life. I asked my dad how that was even possible, and he just chuckled and said that he ate good food and stretched a lot. I don't think he was too far off the mark, though. A lot of what I learned about Native Americans in the United States came from my old man. He knows many of the tribe's names, their territories. He knew about how Sequoia wrote a writing system for the Cherokee language. He is a big American history buff, and he treats the history of the Native American people as something directly intertwined with that. I also remember growing up that he never had anything positive to say about the way the Native Americans were treated, and he never beat around the bush with me. The version of Squanto's story that he told me was very different than the version that the school told me. Can't imagine why.
Hey, do your people even celebrate Thanksgiving?
We did. Once.
In fact, whenever I mentioned a chapter in our American history class, he'd usually get really excited and chime in, throwing in little details that the book didn't tell me, except whenever I mentioned we were learning about something like the Trail of Tears. He'd just get kind of quiet. My dad has a t-shirt with these guys on it. Geronimo, his son, and 2 other Apaches, holding lawn rifles. A popular joke is that these guys were the original Homeland Security since 1492. To a guy like my dad, a gun owner ever since he was a poor country boy in Virginia many years ago, the picture represented a sort of tenacity that carried with it many important lessons and demonstrated that a person's desire for autonomy was not a uniquely American concept, but something all people truly had the right to and strived for. This sort of unspoken respect for the original inhabitants of this land is something that I found surprisingly common with people like my father, veterans. And in a time where, sorry, I'm going to say the word real quick. Identity politics. Oh, God. Takes up the mental RAM of the entire country. Is it important that a Native person gets added to Team Rainbow? I would say yeah. I know most people could care less about Rainbow Six Siege's lore, and some people who did care about it don't care about it as much as they used to. The game has gone in a remarkably different direction than I believe people thought it would. Some of you have seen my video on Siege's writing, but if you haven't, there's an info card on the screen. Not that you have to, but it might provide some additional context. Crime-fighting astronauts aside, I believe some of the more recent character designs are a bit more in line with the kinds of people an international crime-fighting team would try to recruit. Malusi represents very real and active efforts to deal with poachers in South Africa. Sam Fisher is obviously Sam Fisher, and it's pretty hard to get closer to some of the old-school Tom Clancy lore than that. Aruni's robot arm gets a lot of flack, but the way they tied in her lore with Thermite I thought was tastefully done, and reminded people that this line of work isn't Marvel's Avengers. It's dangerous and people get hurt. Though, that doesn't mean they can't do their jobs in a different way. In Rainbow Six Siege's canonical depiction of the game basically being an elaborate exercise, it makes sense to have some of these people be involved in ops on the ground and have some of them just test out stuff like a robot arm in a controlled environment. And as for Flores, canonically he got out of his line of work thanks to working as an informant for Team Rainbow. There are plenty of people that have gone through similar circumstances. If you haven't seen the 3rd season of Narcos, dramatizing the events of the crackdown on the Cali cartel in Colombia, you definitely should check it out. Jorge Salcedo was a real dude who helped bust them from the inside, and his story is fucking wild. As far as Thunderbird is concerned, I find it odd that anyone would take issue with her character design. She's a flight medic. It's pretty straightforward. She's not an astronaut. She's not a secret agent. She's not the long-lost royal heir to the throne. She's not a James Bond villain. Compared to these people, she's pretty average. She's just an average member of the armed forces who separated herself from her peers with exemplary performance. Kind of like these people, which was the whole point of Team Rainbow. So if anything, it gets closer to the original lore, to get the best of the best from as many parts of the globe as possible, to help with the world's most serious problems. As a Nakoda, she brings a perspective that not a lot of people can bring, and that's exactly the kind of thing you look for when recruiting members for a club like this. The main takeaway from all of this is that her chin looks funny. Actually, the main takeaway from all of this is that it's rightist CIA propaganda. Actually, the main takeaway from all of this is that it's leftist SJW propaganda. Jesus Christ, like, what the fuck is Yubi supposed to do here, dude? Basically, the thing about the tattoos. To Native American women, these tattoos throughout history represented a significant turning point in their lives. Called Tamlagan, and if I'm not pronouncing that right, please let me know, or in a more easy to pronounce manner, chin stripes. They signaled the turning point into adulthood. Tattoos are painful to get, and also mark the recipient's ability to tolerate pain. More specific aspects of these tattoos, of course, varied from tribe to tribe, but they remain a remarkably important aspect of Native American culture. In fact, tattoos mean a lot to a lot of different cultures. And the crazy part is that people get tattoos of all kinds of crap. My mom remarked on this bizarre fixation people seem to have with Thunderbird's tats. She said, so people getting Tweety Bird tattooed on their thigh aren't weird. But a traditional Tamlagan is odd. Not that getting a tattoo of Tweety Bird on your thigh is bad. Do what you want. And I'm not surprised by people on the internet cracking jokes over and over again until they get old. I'm not surprised by the Siege community's propensity for bruh, Big Chungus, LMG mounted and loaded. And I won't be surprised by all the stupid bomb jokes that are going to happen when the Irish operator comes. Yubi's got to ignore these people and go about their day. What struck me as odd about the whole Thanos joke was that Thunderbird doesn't look like Thanos. Thanos looks like a giant purple prune fruit man.
Drink your prune juice!
Thunderbird looks like a person.
That's a human person.
I had to try really hard to make this joke stick. And in my experience, if you have to strain your mental to make a joke land, the joke is bad.
Your post was bad.
Not bad because it's offensive. Bad because, objectively, the joke is just bad. My feelings have nothing to do with it. It just doesn't stick. You have to reach for the punchline to land. It's just not funny.
That's not funny. That's not...
But the obsession kids seem to have with making it seems to come from a place of desire to force the joke until it sticks. Because middle schoolers like to be obnoxious and get under people's skin, because being obnoxious and getting under people's skin is funny. Now here's the thing, before people exit out of this video and go in the comments calling me an SJW. Using a people's culture with the deliberate intent of irritating people is very different than cracking jokes about the culture. One of my favorite South Park episodes is a great example of this. South Park gets into hot water all the time for making, quote, insensitive jokes. The jokes are vehicles to point out absurdities. When Lou Kim realizes that there is a Japanese restaurant opening right up next to him, it causes him to lash out in an absurd rant about how the Japanese guy makes food that gives people worms and how he can't speak English very well.
What the f***? Come on, kid. You don't want to eat this shitty sushi. It'd give you worms.
And then the Japanese guy flips it back on him and makes a jab at his food instead.
Better than a shitty Kung Pao chicken made from a cat.
The whole situation is so ridiculous and over the top, and when you consider the very real context of China and Japan constantly trying to run each other's shit on some smoke that only Tom and Jerry could rival, the whole thing becomes even more funny because it's probably not that far off the mark. A similar concept was done in a Key and Peele skit about an Albanian restaurant that was right across the street from a Macedonian restaurant, where the vitriolic history of Albanian and Macedonian relations was boiled down to the difference between stirring or mixing ingredients. At the end of the day, the most important distinction to the restaurant owner was this.
We are here. They are there. We are here. They are there. Here. There. Here. There. Here.
So while a well-meaning but ultimately not very helpful person might try to highlight these skits or even the entirety of the Boondocks as racist because somebody is doing a funny voice, they've missed the point entirely. Now, I know that there are native people in the US who probably see the Thanos joke and probably don't give a shit. There are also probably a lot of native people who have never seen a Marvel movie in their life and probably wouldn't even get the joke even if you tried to explain it to them. There are also native people who think these jokes are annoying and show a lack of class. Now, I am not an advocate of the joke police. I don't think that we should have to run a survey every time somebody writes a joke and ensure that the results have a certain percentage of people who are okay with the joke versus another group of people who aren't. Nobody got mad when someone said Travis Scott looked like bacteria. Okay, maybe one weirdo was like, "Are you serious? Are you making fun of black hairstyles? What is wrong with you?" But at the same time, it wouldn't kill people to have a little bit of cultural background, especially for what is supposed to be, by its design, a very diverse crime-fighting team. It's supposed to be Team Rainbow! Rainbow, like all the colors of the rainbow! For every weirdo, there's a person that sees this bit of news that a Nakoda operator is coming to Rainbow Six Siege. They might not even play the operator, they might think their gun sucks, they might think their gadget sucks, but they'll see that bit of news and they'll go, huh, that's kind of cool. And that's okay. And if an organization like Team Rainbow existed, it wouldn't be a stretch for a character like Thunderbird to get added to it. And that's what makes it work. I'll see you guys in the next video. If you didn't like it, please let me know. Dislike it, show it to your friends, let everybody know how much of a stupid SJW Greg is, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Deuces.